Welcome to the Legacy Leaders Podcast. Are you doing the best for your client to help them create their legacy? Are you creating a plan that goes far beyond finances to help people ensure that it becomes the driving force behind all decisions? On this podcast, hosts Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller will help you with growing your practice and your clients' peace of mind. Together, they bring the best and brightest minds to share with you how to help your clients develop their best legacy. And now, here are your hosts, Katie Beth and Stan.
Welcome to Legacy Leaders Podcast. I am your guest host, Chris Baldino. Today, my guest host is Ed Spinks. He's an attorney that focuses on elder law and estate planning. How you doing, Ed, today?
Hey, great. Having a great day so far, so good.
Thank you so much for joining me. So, Ed, let's go back in town. And you and I were just chatting briefly about your story, which is really interesting. But let's go back in time. And how did you get into or decide to be an attorney?
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting path that I took. So it's probably a little bit different than a lot of people. You know, I meet a lot of my colleagues who say, oh, you know, I knew I wanted to be an attorney from, first grade or elementary school or something like that. And so my path was a little bit unique because I joined the military when I was 17 years old. And so I was in and reenlisted once. So I was on, active duty, from about 85 to 1991. And so just after the Gulf War, I got out and switched to the reserves. While I was in the reserves, I actually started working as a firefighter and attended school at Hillsborough Community College and University of South Florida. So while I was at University of South Florida, I got recruited for the officer program. And so then they persuaded me to go back on active duty, but this time as an officer, where I originally started out being kind of a general ground security officer. And then through that, I was selected in the Marine Corps for the law program. So then I was kicked back into the reserves during law school. And so attended law school to be a lawyer for the Marine Corps, which I did for like about my last 10 years in the Marine Corps. I had 25 years of total service. So I guess I learned from being 17, working as a lawyer in the Marines is a lot better than being a ground guy out in the woods. So
Sure. Sure. That's a great story. That is a great story. So can you tell us a little bit more about your passion and what you're specializing in these days and what do you feel makes you different than other attorneys out in your industry today?
Sure. And so I say we do three things here at Spinks Law Firm. We do elder law, estate planning, and special needs. And so under those three pillars, the elder law is basically planning for families who got loved ones going into assisted living or nursing home, and we're trying to maximize their government benefits while preserving their assets or preserving their wealth. Under the estate planning arena, we're doing the wills, the trusts, the powers of attorney, all that pre-planning stuff that everyone knows that, they need to get in place, but everybody also procrastinates to do so. And then under the special needs, we typically work with families with children with special needs as they develop and grow to make sure their plan is set, be it the need for guardianship when they turn 18 or putting plans in place while they're in school through educational IEPs, 504 plans. And then when they become adults, making those special needs trust, ABLE Act accounts, those type of things that those families need in particular. So how I got started in that arena, it really kind of goes back to the Marine Corps. So my first duty assignment, I was stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Fortunately, it was after the water issues, so I don't have that problem to contend with. But in primary, our mission was at that point doing estate planning for all the Marines and sailors going overseas. Had a lot of people going to Bosnia and Herzegovina, that region of the world at that time. And so as the younger Marines and sailors would go over, you want to make sure that their children were taken care of, their assets were planned for, if they became incapacitated or killed for any reason. So that was kind of my first foray into doing, kind of large volume estate planning. And that carried on throughout the Marine Corps, although I had a number of different types of jobs. So as I approached retirement and started getting ready, I always made it part of my practice area. But the moment that really changed my life is my son was born in May of 2011. And so he was born with Down syndrome, which opened my eyes to a whole nother area of planning that we talked about, was the special needs aspect. So, working, and having a child with Down syndrome certainly ties you into that community. And I started getting a lot of questions about it. And to tell you the truth, I didn't know that much about it at that time, because I'd always planned for Marines and relatively healthy younger people. So I started learning more about that aspect of law. I did have the opportunity to go to class at William and Mary Law School, learned a little bit more about it, and so made that a focus of the practice. And so we've been in that area probably since 2011. We've really focused on those three things: elder law, estate planning, and special needs.
Wow, thanks for that. That's a lot, and I cannot it's so important to have these things. Most of the people I speak to don't really understand the whole process and how important this is. Ed, what kind of an experience are you trying to deliver when you meet with somebody? And as I'm listening to you, I guess you just cannot help bring in the military experience into your practice. Is that true?
Yeah, it really is true. And so, and that's a lot of our clients. Just, your clients are who you meet and who you know and who knows you. So, we got a fairly large number of military clients, and we do have a focus on veteran benefits, not spectrum wide, but there's particular benefits called VA pension, aid and attendance. Those are usually benefits available to wartime veterans who are over 65 years old. And typically they're looking at them when they're getting nurses help at home, assisted living, or nursing home care. So that's one of the avenues that we do approach. And then we work with a lot of families with special needs, but a good volume of people who are doing their pre-planning as well, just, making plans for their family, their kids to, move on into adulthood. Where we kind of stand out is, we individualize our plans, and it's very important, particularly when you're talking about the elder law, because everybody's plans for their family members are different, and everybody's plans for their children are different. So, you want to take the time to understand that and kind of tailor the plan to their goals. Frequently, the first question I'll ask, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to get to? And then we kind of backwards design it, instead of just saying, you need a will, you need a trust, you need a power of attorney. The documents are important, but they're only important in the sense that it gets you to your goal. So, they're a tool to get to the goal is the way I look at it.
Sure. Yeah, in my practice as a financial advisor, I often start with, let's begin with the end in mind, right? Working backwards. How do you feel about your estate and your legacy? Today's so interesting with technology and digital pictures and, and keeping access to that for the family for years and years and years and years to come. And the planning that you do is so important, Ed. So can you tell me a story of how you have helped someone overcome a struggle or get out of harm's way with your planning?
Yeah, there's probably so many stories that come about, and probably the best ones are where you did the planning for the family to get them to the goal. I do recall a family that came in a couple months ago. Their loved one had passed, and they were pretty distraught, and they were not happy about facing the aspects of probate, and there was some debt and other things on the estate. But it was made me feel good that I was able to explain to them that, hey, because of the planning we've already done, there's no need for probate. Those debts are not going to collect as a lien on the house. The spouse is going to be able to stay in the house. It's not going to go to creditors or anything like that. So, it just made me feel good to give them that news, kind of lifted that burden off of them. So that pre-planning, even though they didn't realize that it was taken care of, it was great to have that experience where I was able to tell them, hey, this is already planned for, it's already taken care of. It's not the things you're concerned about, you don't have to be, because it's already planned for. So that pre-planning definitely goes a long way.
Sure does. Sure does. Ed, what are some common misconceptions about your industry that might frustrate you or you wish were different?
Yeah, in usually in our industry, where we see the points of frustration are the the procrastination, which I understand, but it's hard to stress the importance of having these plans in place, because what I see frequently are people will contact me when it's a crisis or when it's an emergency, and they hadn't done the pre-planning. And so that's a difficult challenge, because we got a lot of tools in the toolbox to plan, but in a crisis or an emergency, when we might have 10 options, 2 or 3 years ago, now we've only got 1 or 2 options that may not even be the best, but it's what we got to do, because now we have no time, and the person might not even have capacity to transfer funds or sign documents or do those type of things that are necessary to build a really good solid plan. So we got to do what we can do in those circumstances. So
I can imagine. Ed, where do you see your industry or your field in the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, it continues to grow, and healthcare in general continues to grow. The great thing about medical technology is people live longer. However, I was just reading the stats the other day when I was preparing a presentation that now 70% of the people over 65 are going to have some need for assisted living or nursing home care. So they're going to need that care in the future. And so how they plan for that and how they're going to pay for it, is a challenge for every one of us, because, most of us are going to live over 65 now due to medicine, technology, and that type of stuff. But are we going to outlive our resources, outlive our funds? How are we going to, cover that? It's an important conversation for everyone to think about and everyone to have with their family.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, as I had said earlier, we're in similar, our businesses overlap in that area, in the protection area. So my job is to help people protect their assets and make sure they have income to live their life. But we also want to protect them from these medical spend downs. It's really a challenge. And there's really there's no silver bullet out there. And it all comes back to the planning you said, and being proactive. It's so important. So
individualized, it's like everybody's got different, that's what I find. One thing, everybody's situation is going to be different. So, talking to, your financial professionals, your CPAs, your attorneys, and putting that plan together, it's kind of like a 3-legged stool where we all have to work together to accomplish the goal.
Sure. Yeah. And I often speak to folks and I say, the rich, they have the attorney, they have the tax guy, and they got the money guy, right? So, but you don't have to be rich to have those three.
No.
And all 3 of them are so important in your life. So Ed, so with that in mind, what would be an ideal client for you, and how can people find you?
Yeah, sure. So our ideal clients are probably people that are planning, 5 years or so out, be it, the people that, are having children and they're younger, purchasing property and they're younger. So they're starting to get those resources, or having those kids that they got to plan long-term for. Or those people within 5 years of retirement, because that's a little bit different planning. They probably already have the kids and they're grown, but they're looking at their own retirement and planning down the road on how that's going to go. So, those are the ideal clients in the pre-planning phase. Of course, we always, we never turn away the clients in a crisis. And, I appreciate helping them as well. But I feel we do the most effective job the earlier we're involved in the planning process, makes us more effective. And of course, for those families with special needs, they usually contact us pretty early, because as the children age and the families learn more, they know they need a special needs trust and guardianship when the child turns 18. So they're a little bit more proactive, I think, than even the families without special needs. So they can contact us by going to the website, which is www.spinkslawfirm.com. We've got our main office in Tampa, but we got a satellite over in Brandon, and one up in Pasco County, Land O'Lakes.
Ed, is this your firm? Do you work with other attorneys as well?
Yeah, I'm the only attorney in the firm. So the way we have it is kind of decentralized, so to speak. I like the opportunity to meet with clients and prepare the planning with them. Now we do have several paralegals and legal assistants that help me. I can't say I'm out here doing this all by myself, and they really probably do the lion's share of the work. So I get to meet the clients and rely on the paralegals and legal assistants to make me look good, because they do a great job with the documents and planning and everything it takes to make it happen.
I'm sure you take care of your staff lavishly, right? You have to take care of your people, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they do a great job.
Ed, is there anything else you would like to add before we sign off?
Yeah, I would only say, don't wait for a crisis. My advice is get in early, get those pre-planning documents done, just because you never know what the future holds. And if you have the pre-plan done, it's a weight off your shoulders, and certainly a weight off your loved one to have a plan in place before a crisis develops.
That's so important. I teach a class on how to achieve a level 10 of confidence in your finances. And that is one of those areas is what can you control? Focus on what you can control, and you can control that planning.
Absolutely.
And that's how you develop confidence, and peace of mind. So it's so amazing. So, well, for our folks, I want to thank you for listening to our podcast today. This has been the Legacy Leaders Podcast. My name is Chris Baldino. Our guest today was Ed Spinks. And for more information on finding Ed and the work he does in the Tampa area, we can go to his website at spinkslawfirm.com. We will be including this contact information in the show notes for you. So again, thank you today, and we look forward to our next podcast.
Thank you, Chris.
You've been listening to the Legacy Leaders Podcast with Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller. For more information on them and the show, please visit pinnaclelegacylaw.com. If you like what you've learned today, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.